Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. 2,000 Polish and American soldiers are currently training together at the range in Drawsko Pomorskie. At the same time, the Polish and United States authorities will sign an agreement relating to the permanent stationing of United States troops on Poland. This will happen on Saturday, the 15th of August, the centenary of the Battle of Warsaw, or Miracle on the Vistula, when Polish forces defeated the Bolshevik army and secured Europe from communist invasion. Mike Pompeo, the United States Secretary of State, will be in Warsaw on that day. The Minister of Defense, Mariusz Błaszczak, visited soldiers today and said that, together, we are stronger. Minister of Defense Mariusz Błaszczak was in Drawsko Pomorskie to observe the military exercise, forming part of the Emergency Deployment Readiness Exercise, the second phase of the Defender Europe 20 exercises. According to Breaking Defense, the agreement between Poland and the United States involved the stationing of a US divisional headquarters in Poland, a joint-use combat training centre in Drawsko, infrastructure for an armoured light brigade combat team, a combat aviation bridge, and a combat sustainment support battalion. During the press conference, Błaszczak said that these training exercises prove that there is a close military cooperation between the two countries. I am really glad that the Polish Army trains with the American Army every day, he said. The Central Examination Board has announced the official results of the final high school examination. 74% passed this secondary school leaving examination. 70% of this year's graduates of the upper secondary schools who failed in one subject are entitled to correct them this month. The exams were summed up by the Minister of Education, Dariusz Piątkowski. We are glad that the high school finals were completed successfully. The overwhelming number of graduates finished those exams with success. 3/4 of the total received a 100% passing grade and can continue now the process to apply to a university. We think that we made a very good decision to have these exams the way we did, because this allows us to compare the results from different parts of the country and from various schools. The approach we took also allows parents and the students themselves to compare the results. We think that the conditions we created were safe, and both the parents and the students are at peace to attend these schools for these exams. At this point, it is worthwhile extending a big thanks to the teachers and to the principals of all schools, who made all preparation in these new conditions of pandemia and followed all the guidelines to create a safe environment for the exams. We did not have any serious situations which might have had an influence on the exams. Today, the graduates can enjoy the results they received, and thanks to their grades, they will be able to continue their future education. As the past year's experience shows every year, there were a small number of students who took a casual approach to the final high school exams and failed. For those who failed one subject, they might take the exam again in September this year. For those who failed more subjects, they might take the exam again next year, if they desire to do so. It was another restless night in Belarus, following riots caused by the official exit polls released on Sunday, showing a victory for Alexander Lukashenko in the presidential election. At one point, the staff of the presidential candidate, Świetlana Tikhanovskaya, publicly announced that their candidate had disappeared, but, as it turned out, she was safe in Lithuania. The Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed deep concern following the situation in Belarus after the presidential election held last Sunday. According to the ministry, the use of force against peaceful protesters and arbitrary arrests are unacceptable. We call on the Belarusian authorities to take control of the situation, release political prisoners and people arrested during the demonstrations. We want peace. In our opinion, people are not happy with the election results and have the right to organise peaceful demonstrations. European Union leaders called on the Belarusian authorities for dialogue, taking control of the violence and proper counting of the votes. However, according to political scientist Artur Wróblewski, the situation is very difficult. The European Union and democratic countries in general have a very small amount of instruments with which to apply pressure. That is why organising protests, writing letters and imposing sanctions are the only things left to do. We know that the sanctions were ineffective, and authoritarian regimes like, for instance, in Syria, Iran and Belarus are great proof of that. According to the preliminary election results presented by CKW, incumbent President Alexander Lukashenko won 80% of the votes. Świetlana Tikhanovskaya was in second place with 10% of the votes. None of the other candidates received 2% of the votes. Political scientists have no doubt that the lack of dialogue between Belarusian society and President Lukashenko will be very bad for Poland. The main rival of Alexander Lukashenko in the Belarusian presidential election, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, is currently in Lithuania. The Belarusian authorities denied the accusation that they forced her to go abroad. Tsikhanouskaya recorded a short video in which she explained that her departure was her own choice.
Меня очень сильно закалило.
I thought that this campaign made me stronger, so I'm going to be able to endure anything. But I am still this weak woman that I was before. I've made a very difficult decision for myself. I made this decision all by myself, without the help of my friends, my advisors, or my staff.
Я приняла очень тяжелое для себя решение.
According to Lithuanian media, Tsikhanouskaya's choice of Lithuania was not accidental, because the city of Vilnius is the place where the Belarusian opposition has been gathering for years. Mrs. Tsikhanouskaya can be a political instrument in Belarus. Paradoxically, with time, she can become Putin's instrument. Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya has asked voters to stop the protests during which many people were injured and one died. According to official data, nearly 3,000 Belarusians were arrested. Today, hundreds of thousands of people laid flowers in the place of the death of the protester. The European Commission will not allocate funding to Polish cities and municipalities which oppose the LGBT ideology. The decision was made last week and has since been criticised by President Andrzej Duda. In an interview for the Gazeta Polska Weekly, the Polish head of state stressed that it's the parents who should be trusted to raise their children, not other organisations or international institutions. So far as I'm aware, only one of the municipalities touched by this decision has actually adopted an act in defence of the family and parents' rights. The rest have not adopted such acts. It is clear then that the European Union decision in this case was probably not motivated by ideological issues, and some only wish to present it in this way to make the atmosphere more heated. No one will ever raise children better than their parents. Polish families want what's best for their children and know how best to take care of their development. If funds were actually taken away for ideological reasons, then it would be a clear violation of values which lie at the base of the European Union, like freedom, dignity and equality. It would be like claiming that someone is worse just because they want to protect their values. Sławomir Nowak will not be leaving detention anytime soon. The court rejected his appeal to be released from temporary detention. The former Minister of Transport in the government of Donald Tusk was charged with leading a criminal organisation and obtaining profits from corruption, namely taking bribes in exchange for arranging deals for private contractors, building and repairing roads in Ukraine. The regional court in Warsaw did not rule in favour of the motion of Nowak's defence and upheld the decision of the previous instance to keep him in detention. On the 22nd of July, the regional court for the Mokotów district in Warsaw agreed with the motion of the prosecution and decided to put Sławomir Nowak under temporary detention for 3 months. The former Minister of Transport in the Civic Platform government, and later head of the Ukrainian Road Agency, is suspected of demanding and accepting financial bribes in exchange for giving contracts for road construction in Ukraine, being in charge of a criminal organisation, and money laundering. Many Solidarity freedom fighters from the 1980s suffer from poverty today. The time they spent fighting for a free Poland qualified as unemployment when taxes and contributions were not paid. August marks the 40th anniversary of the foundation of Solidarity. The government wishes to ease the burdens on these ageing heroes. Today, the Council of Ministers is going to adopt a draft bill addressed to the activists of the anti-communist opposition. The project involves, among others, compensation for damages which must be done in the area of pensions. Every person who has the status of an anti-opposition activist or was oppressed for political reasons will receive a pension in the amount of at least 2,400 zloty. Polish firefighters who have been searching the ruins of the port in Beirut have returned to Poland after 4 days of hard work. Their campaign there is summarised by the spokesman of the Chief Commander of the State Fire Service, Senior Captain Krzysztof Batorski.
Była to 4-dniowa misja, która była jedną z trudniejszych.
The 4-day foreign mission was one of the most difficult ones for our firefighters. We should remember that 10 years ago, our firefighters undertook rescue operations in Haiti after the earthquake, and 5 years ago in Nepal, also after an earthquake. Most of the firefighters from these previous missions took part in this action in Beirut. The conditions were very difficult when we talk about Beirut after the explosion. The scale of damage is extensive. 39 firefighters from the search team Musa with 4 dogs and 4 firefighters specialised in chemical salvage. This unit carried out searches in Lebanon. The authorities assigned us the largest exploration zone of over 62 hectares. Our firefighters, as one of 2 teams, had the right to conduct search and rescue operations in the civilian zone. The second team were rescuers from France, but they were under completely different rules as a result of bilateral agreements, so it can be assumed that, apart from the French, only Poles were given the opportunity to work in the civilian zone. Our main activity was searching for the survivors, testing the stability of buildings to assess whether the building is so damaged as to collapse. Our rescue teams also provided first aid, qualified first aid, and left on site their medical supplies worth over 50,000 zloty for the Lebanese people to use. To conclude, we worked in high temperatures, over 35 degrees Celsius, but our rescuers happily returned to Poland yesterday evening, and at the moment they are resting and recovering, and they're undergoing a series of medical tests in accordance with our procedures. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.